This is Rich Friend, broker at Ricardo Amigo Real Estate, and we're doing another podcast, Rare Conversations. And today I'm with three of our experienced agents, Aaron Morkoff, my brother Billy Friend, and sales manager Tyson Gargis. We're coming at you from Casa Nakui, which is one of our new listings that is listed by Pearland Marina. They have this co-listed at $2,575,000. Beautiful contemporary home, one level with a viewing deck, pool, hot tub, fire pit. It checks so many boxes. Garage. They have a separate garage. They also have a kind of guest room that's kind of has its own entrance. And it's in the neighborhood of El Pocito, just a little bit away from Pastora Beach. This conversation we're going to discuss right now what I consider we're in listing season. A lot of people during this time before the heart of the season comes around, they're going to be listing their properties. And as agents, we go out on listing presentations. In this podcast, I'd like to focus on what you can suggest to sellers that would set their listing apart and kind of enhance their listing and make it stand out in the market that we're currently in. Mm-hmm. So the first question I want to ask is, and I'll start with Aaron. What do you think would make, you're going on a listing presentation, what are you going to point out that's going to kind of set this listing apart? You can, if you wanted to use this house that we're currently in, we're just in general a listing that you go. What are you going to use and suggest to the seller as something that will make your property stand out?
Well, in general, when it comes to new construction like this, they're usually hiring an interior designer, decorator. It's already pretty much done. Mm-hmm. It's not overdone. It's not underdone. Like there's still room for people to see their own art on the wall, see their own personal choices, right? Right. So that's a really good place to be when you're talking about new construction. When you're talking about something that's pre-existing, there have been some eras in construction here and color choices in the past that are very particular to certain eras here, mm-hmm. I would say, and that depending upon how much you're selling your property for, what your expectations are, sometimes there may be some color changes that can help, especially on interior. If somebody's going with something that's super, super, super colorful, they may want to tone it down a little bit, make it more neutral, make it more something that somebody with modern taste could see their furniture fitting in, somebody with more traditional taste could see their furniture fitting in. So generally it's a case-by-case, on a case-by-case basis. Okay. I mean, you can't just kind of say, this is what you have to do. I think the main thing is make sure your grounds are kept clean, mm-hmm. like especially entrance. The first, you never get another second chance to make a first impression, right? That's a saying, that's really true. So you pull up to a house and everything looks impeccable, immediately a lot of doubts fade. They're not looking for little things. If it doesn't look well kept, they're gonna start looking for problems. So that's really important to do that. And then minimize clutter. Don't leave things around there, get rid of it, hide it, store it, whatever you have to do. Depersonalize the space so that it's not overly your space. You need to let people see it as their space and have some room for them to interpret it in their way.
Really good advice. Bill, what would you suggest to you're on a listing presentation, and what would you maybe suggest to a seller that would make their property stand out?
It's a great question, and I deal with this all the time. And I tell my sellers, make it comfortable for the potential buyer.
Yes.
To give them a wow factor. Make sure, as Aaron said, when you enter, everything is just right. Make sure it's spotless clean. Hire a cleaner if you have to. Depending on your price point, and you want top dollar, put a pool in if it doesn't have one. Okay, a hot tub. Give the amenities, albeit you may not use, most people will, and will attract the higher prices. It's easy to put a number on your property, I want this. Put some time, effort, and sometimes finances into your property. Another thing I recommend is when you're listing your property, do a survey. Do a survey on your points.
A survey on the land.
On the land.
Yeah.
Right, that, and you can take it a step further. Do the title search if you already have one, and even do a current home inspection if you want. Have everything in order for your potential buyer. And if you do that home inspection, or if you know of problems within your home, address them before we bring clients in.
This is a really good point. Being proactive before you go to market is a great suggestion for sellers. Tyson, would you like to add anything to what you may suggest to a seller about making their property stand out?
Yeah, and both Aaron and Billy made some great points, and that covers a lot of things. I mean, I think really someone being able to visualize the home and see themselves in there is so important. I mean, we're in an area that people are making more emotional purchases, that they don't generally have to move here because they got a job, so they're relocating, or they got to get change school districts before the school year starts. So people want to be here, and they're trying to visualize and see themselves. What does their life look like here, and what does their life look like in this home that they're going to purchase? So all those things that they mentioned are great points. I'll just maybe take a different approach as far as making your property stand out. If you're just selling land, things you can do if you're just selling land. Billy made a great point as far as a survey. Make sure that the survey, you've got the entire property clearly marked. If you can do some basic stuff like fencing, a little bit of clearing, keep all the nice beautiful native plants, but maybe just do a little bit of clearing so someone who goes up to the property can really kind of see exactly what they're purchasing, see the whole thing, instead of like, I think the corner's over there and maybe that one's over there. Like, there's nothing worse than that. It's good so that someone can see exactly what they're getting. And even one thing, I have a seller that did this and I thought was such a great idea, such a small investment, but such a great idea. They graded the road to their property. We had a lot of rain this year. I don't know if you out there in the public know that, but we had more rain this year than we had in the last 5 years combined. So a lot of rain, the roads were really bad. So what he did, he was proactive. He actually graded the road to his property because it was pretty beat up. The neighbors loved him for that. The public loved him. And any potential buyer that goes and looks at the house is like, because it can be difficult if you're going over really bad roads, which a lot of roads are right now because we just kind of finished that much rain. So that was something, that was a tactic or something that was done that I've never heard of being done that I thought was great. Like something like that. And it wasn't much of an investment. I think he maybe paid a few $100s to have that done, and it makes all the difference in the world. I was just driving out there yesterday and I was like, wow, this is great.
Little things like that do add value to and make your property stand out. Tyson mentioned that we just went through a heavy rain season, so a lot of properties were overgrown.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that you're clearing properties, making sure that you create walking paths for raw land is super important. I'd like to get into what are some of the challenges for listing. We had mentioned there's more inventory now than there was last year, and with that, what do you want to maybe suggest to a seller to say, okay, we've got all this inventory, here's what we're facing, here's what people are looking for. What are some of the challenges in listing a property and telling a seller? I mean, a lot of it has to do with price, but what else would you say? Tyson, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think price is generally the biggest one. I mean, it's price and location that really sell property. So I think we have to really, work with an experienced agent like all of us here at Ricardo Amigo, and make sure when you're looking at comparable properties, you're looking at true comparable properties. And when we say that, it doesn't have to be in the immediate area, but it should be a comparable neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And looking at homes that have actually sold or are in the process of being sold, not what's actually on the market. I think those are the mistakes, and there's that critical 30-day period when a home or a property is first launched and everyone's really taking a look at it, that's where everything needs to be right. So I think getting that price right is ultra critical, maybe the most critical part of the initial process.
It's a great point, because you had mentioned price and location. You can't change location.
Right.
But price is something that's going to dictate market. It always does. And when you're using comps, like you had mentioned, use comps that have sold. If someone wants to point out to you something that's active on the market, let's say, well, my neighbor's property is for sale for this amount, why shouldn't I be the same? We had discussed this earlier in the meeting this morning. Aaron brought to the attention that your neighbor's property has been on the market for 300 days. If it's saying that it hasn't sold, that's a great indication that maybe it's priced incorrectly. Sure. With that, I'll segue and let you answer.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that make me move price, and that doesn't sound like a good strategy anymore. This is a really dynamic market, and I think this year is going to be a year where, if you're really interested in selling, this is a really good year to list your property. I think the main thing you can do is listen to us as much as you can. And I know that my experience as a real estate agent selling a lot of commercial properties, which is much less emotional, that was a box that you turn the crank and money comes out, and there's certain expenses, right? It's not an emotional decision, but selling a house for somebody who's been here for a long time is a very emotional decision for them. And a lot of times their memories seem to inflate the price that they think the house is worth.
Sure.
And so our job is to be able to show them facts and figures. And I don't know if you've heard the expression, most people probably have, of buying a listing. That's where an agent who maybe doesn't know the area very well, hasn't done their research, starts letting you dictate where the price should be, rather than giving you really sound advice and comps and a look at the market and trying to give you a really realistic idea of expectations of the market and how we can sell your house. Otherwise, you're going to have one of those houses that will sit on the market for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and that does happen. And this is a place where people have a choice of what they want to buy now, and they don't have to buy, as you were saying. This is a choice. So the best thing to do is work with us. Let us guide you. Let us paint an analytical picture, as well as knowing the area, knowing what's happening in the area. Because Ricardo Amigo is really one of the only agencies that's really just focused on this area, and has been for the whole time that you opened up this agency. So our agents are really, we have a little macro view of everything that's going on here. And we know the neighbors, we know what's happening, we know if there's a project slated in the area. And those things are good data points that don't necessarily show on the MLS. And those are things that we draw from to try to figure out how we can maximize the sale of your property, how we can get you the most money for your property. And then depending upon your timeline, how we want to price the property to get it to move.
Good points. Billy, you want to add anything about some of the dynamics of pricing or challenges for listing?
Sure. What both my colleagues just shared here, especially with the pricing, listen to your agent. I mean, I'll go to a listing, and sometimes I'll bring 2 other agents with me to get second and third opinions. And when push comes to shove, we're going to list at the price that the seller wants. But I like to tell them, look, if we're not getting any visits or offers, we got to adjust the price. And like we said, get everything in order. With your paperwork as well. Let's bring it to the table. Let's show a rental history that'll bring people to it. If we're going to ask top dollar, but we're going to bring in X amount per year. Have it on paper.
I loved your suggestion, Billy, too, that you were talking about that's the way they do in the States too. They'll do a pre-inspection.
Yeah.
They'll have the report available showing everything. And if there was something that was called out in that pre-inspection, they'll show that they fixed it already. Right? You're just being open and clean about something, especially an older house. If you could do that, here's the title, here's a pre-inspection report, Here's everything so you feel good about knowing exactly what it is you're gonna put an offer on.
Listen to your agent. Listen, you've chosen myself or another agent for a reason. We're experts in this field. Not to be, whatever. We're experts. We know what we're doing. So, if we suggest one thing we didn't touch on before is landscape. Landscaping goes a huge effect on your property. I've had to deal with sellers that won't put a dime into their landscaping. Listen. Nobody wants to spend money but you're going to get them.
Yeah, it's more of an investment instead of a money spend. I think that's maybe, educating your sellers to look on it that way. Putting in a pool, it might cost you, throw out a number, $50,000, $100,000 for a really nice pool. You'll generally get at least double that in return when you sell the property. Not to mention that many more eyeballs on it because there's only a certain amount of homes that have pools and people are looking for homes that have pools. So, yeah.
I think it's a good point, being able to knowledgeably speak about what your return would be for putting something in, whether it be landscape, a jacuzzi, a pool, an additional bedroom, or communicating the value of what you currently have and what exists. Here's what we're selling, and here's why I'm telling you this is the value of your property. And data to back that up, I think, is super important. We always hear, sellers say, I don't want to leave any money on the table. Well, we also don't want to just leave the table there, right? Our goal is not to list the property. Our goal is to sell the property. Mm-hmm. Let's go in. Billy had mentioned kind of landscaping. How important is staging and the presentation of a property? Like, where do you fit that in as far as you're doing a presentation? Where does staging fit in today's market as far as the importance of staging a property in this market?
It's critical. It depends on the home, though. I would say that too. Depending on your price point, we're talking about the really high-end homes. They need to be furnished, and that furnishing needs to match the buyer. The price point that you're after. That furnishing, if you're selling a multi-million-dollar home, your furnishing should be multi-million-dollar home furnishing to match kind of that. So that's really critical, and so much is on what people see. People can't see the structure or the foundation for the most part. That's where the building inspector comes in. So a lot of the structural components they can't see. What they see is a lot of the, I don't want to say superficial, but a lot of the visual effects of a home. Those are super, super critical. So working with someone that can help you in that area is always a great idea because you're going to get so much more on your money in real small investments when it comes to that.
So curb appeal is super important, like you were saying. Like, we can't see structure or anything like that. That'll come from the home inspection. Bill, what do you see as how important is staging a property?
Staging a home is. I was just thinking of this the other day. I was showing homes, and I can see from an agent, or whether I'm selling it or I'm repping the buyer. When I see a home that isn't run right, when I say run right, the owner's up in the U.S. or Canada, and there's no property management on the home. There's just no one there. Who's in charge? Oh, the gardener is. Well, that's who's looking in on the garden. That's a whole other thing too. I can't tell you how many properties I go to, and when I go, I bring a maintenance guy with me because I get there a half hour early, depending on what that tour looks like. We start cleaning the outside of the property. It just happened the other day because the owner's up north or wherever they are. There's no management there, or if they have management, it's not being run well. The gardener doesn't show up, the place looks lousy. Oh, there was a boatload of rain, which there has been, so I don't want to spend money cleaning the yard. I've actually had people say that. I don't want to put money into the yard. Well, he comes once a month. You can't afford, if I don't want to spend money on a gardener once a week or twice. Guys, we're asking, X amount for the home. The least we can do is present a very good, clean product. Okay, yes, some may have renters there, let's have a deal with the renters to keep it clean, okay? Buying lunch, whatever you have to do, let's keep the place clean, because we, like Aaron had said before, first impression is everything.
Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, these guys covered it pretty much. Yeah, like I said, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So the less people pick out at first sight, the less questions they'll have, the less problems they'll have, the more positive they'll be about everything. It'll be on their yes list instead of their, maybe list, the house. So, you decided you want to sell your house. Well, we're going to give you some good advice on how to do that.
Yeah.
You can choose to follow it or not, but if you follow it, like I said, with a little investment, you'll make a lot more in the end. You'll speed up the process of finding a buyer and selling it. And the time value of money is, if you have it in your hands now, you can do something with it. And if you're going to not invest a little bit, then we might suggest, even in some key areas, your house is going to sit there for longer. And, that's an opportunity lost. So I think that all of us have enough experience, and we've been to many of these different types of houses, different aged houses, different style of houses, and we know how people react. We know how little changes can make big differences. So ideally, our clients follow what we're thinking and implement it, and it helps.
I just want to point out that we can make suggestions as agents, and we can make suggestions on placement of things to make less clutter. There aren't many companies here that are actually doing staging a house itself.
Yeah.
But I would say this, that most people who are buying here are used to buying a turnkey product.
Yes.
And so if your house is unfurnished, you might want to think about at least a minimum furniture package that's going to be clean. Other things that was mentioned earlier by Aaron was neutral colors that don't just not your taste, a general condition taste, right? So I think these things are super important. It's not the responsibility of an agent to stage your property, but we would be happy to give suggestions and just kind of say, maybe we do this, or we can put you in touch with the local furniture companies or people from La Paz or Cabo.
Yeah, there's some interior designers around here that do that for clients.
Absolutely.
They'll furnish your whole place. You buy a place, we can give you the name of a interior designer who can go and have custom furniture made and fill your place too.
Yep.
So depending again on the level of the house, what you're doing, especially if you're somebody who's building a house for sale, especially stage it, furnish it, do that, it'll sell it. It'll be better.
It adds a lot of value, right? I mean, so let's talk about marketing tools, strategies when it comes to listing a property and selling a property. What do you see in today's market as being some of the key aspects of marketing strategies? I'll start with Bill on this one. What would you say? You've got social media, you've got different facets of marketing. What do you see, or what do you emphasize to a seller?
What I emphasize is obviously marketing with videos, taking out ads, etc. And on a more personal level, I like to get the word out, okay, to my fellow agents. We have over a dozen agents in our office alone. Then, with my network of other agents in town and past buyers and sellers, I put it out there to them with emails, a WhatsApp, a phone call. I have a property for you. Okay, this one's going to hit. This is a great deal. What I think would be in their niche, I personalize to them, the potential buyer. Okay.
So existing database.
Database,
okay.
Right? I mean, we have our marketing, whether it be with ads and videos, etc. The company does a lot, but also on a personal level, I think that goes a long way.
What tools do you? I know you love to do videos. You love to your social media, and they seem to work for you. When you're on a suggestion to a seller, what strategies are you putting forward?
I'm putting everything that I can throw at it forward. I mean, namely, first, definitely great photographs, which we do. We get it up on the MLS, which is 1,350 I think agents right now, so that immediately starts getting out there to them, which is great. But also doing a video, sort of walk through drone view of the property. Also, I think what's really key is when you do a video, if you're near the water, is to show the connection from the property to the water and back to the property so they know where they're living.
Yeah.
You can do a great walkthrough of a house, but if you don't really know where it's located and you don't know why you want to live there, you're not doing as much of a service to the property as well. So I always try to give the property a position where you can see where you are and what's near you. Okay, so that's really important. Then again, hitting Facebook, Instagram, doing all those things, doing meta buys, promoting the property, getting all of our database that we have at Rare that we've collected forever, get the properties exposed out in email blasts. Signage. People always say sometimes the signs are for the agents, for their own promotion, but I think we talked about that too, which there are a lot of people that are just driving around, they're on vacation, they see something. They weren't looking on the MLS. They see a sign, we have a QR code on there, they snap that, gets them information about the property right away. Maybe we end up showing the property that same day to them or the next day because they're in town for a few days. Maybe they fall in love with the property and buy it. But either way, use everything at your disposal to catch that one buyer, because you don't know where it's going to come from, so you really have to hit everything.
Good points, and the sign was a good one as well. Tyson, what would you like to discuss as far as strategies and marketing? How it plays a huge part now in what we're doing. What would stand out for you as far as what tools are you going to talk to a seller about listing a property?
Yeah, what Aaron mentioned and what Billy mentioned, I think are still, a lot of the social media and kind of more cutting edge, going by the metrics, really narrowing down who your demographic is that you're targeting, whether that's geographically or just a certain age, a certain client profile, and placing your ads or putting all your social media that way. That approach, great. The traditional approach, really, of just making sure everyone knows that the property is for sale. If they don't know the property's for sale, no one's going to buy it. So one of the most important things you can do is just making sure, talking to people and making sure that everyone knows that the property is for sale. And I think we can't, as much now as it's so much about social media, so much about Instagram, so much about all of that. And all of us know we spend too much time on our phones. That's the world that we live in. There's so much to be said for just going out and talking to people, talking to neighbors. I was putting up a sign the other day. A neighbor drove by, ended up chatting with a neighbor. She may have a friend that's interested. So just little things like that go such a long way. So I think as we're lucky enough, we use Torote Marketing is the only dedicated real estate marketing firm in the area. So we work exclusively with them, tailoring packages for each client. But you can't discount a well-placed sign and just going out and talking to people. Those things are just tried and true methods. Working with an agent that has a great reputation in the community that people trust, that's another huge one. I think those things you can't really discount. As much as we hit all the social media and we check all those boxes too, the foundation of all that is still just going out and talking to people and making sure everyone knows that the property's for sale.
This is a really great point, and I like to tell all agents, when you're listing a property, you should immediately knock on the neighbor's door and say, we are currently going to be listing this property. Do you have it? We want to make sure that the neighbors get the first look, and then from there, they're telling other people. And what Tyson and even Billy mentioned a little bit is that word of mouth, people that referrals and word of mouth are still, we were speaking about this morning. We went to a seminar down in Cabo, and this high-end luxury listing agent in California, I think LA and Central California area, said that as much marketing as she does, and she has teams, and as much marketing as they do, her number one marketing approach was still word of mouth.
And referrals. Yeah.
And referrals.
Yep.
And I think it's just super important to recognize and to educate a seller about that. Yeah, really good points on that one. Let's kind of end with a general overall view of, we know that most of the objections we get from listings are going to be, is the price realistic for the market? And how do we convey to sellers that you're pricing correctly in this market? I have to explain a lot. That was a price during COVID. This is a price for now, right? And even though we see the market growing, home values have gone up, we have to sometimes act as mediators to say, wait a minute, we want to get the most value for your property, but here's what the statistics show. And they say, well, I want to be the first one to do this, right? So how do we convey to a seller that their price is correct and will sell in this, and give them the best opportunity to sell in this market? One of the things that I really think about is amenities and what sets that property apart from others on the market. And with this, I think this could be the topic of, like, for presentation. Let's talk about this in general, and we'll end on this note. So Aaron, why don't you start?
So you want to talk about amenities and
Or
setting
no,
your property
just
price?
kind of setting the price correctly in the market. What do we do to convey to the seller?
Well, that's again becomes like agent experience and knowing what other
Agent
things,
experience, okay.
what's on the market, what your competition is, what they have that you either have equal to, or maybe you're better than, or maybe you need to think about that you're not offering this. So again, that's experience, and so that's something that coming to a listing presentation and talking with somebody about listing their property is bringing comps, bringing data, bringing experience, bringing, firsthand experience of saying, I know the house 3 doors down. I walked through that house, or I sold that house. Here's what they did, here's what they had. This is why that property either had a difficulty selling or why we got it sold quickly. And being able to explain that thoroughly and simply, I guess, too, is just something where it's like, that just makes sense then.
I really like what you were saying prior, like you had mentioned agents buying a listing, right?
Yeah.
Being forthright and just sincere, even at the risk of, like, you don't want to offend the seller, but you just want to be honest about, this is what, because they're not seeing their house in an objective fashion of their property. So I think pointing stuff like that out, what you were saying, is super important, even at the risk of hurting someone's feelings.
Well, even at the risk of not getting the listing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to walk away from a listing if somebody can't be within a realistic frame, because all I know is that I'm going to spend a year with that listing on the market, and they're going to get frustrated because they're not getting it sold, and I'm going to not be frustrated, but I'll be communicating with them that either we're not getting enough traffic, the price is too high, people are calling out certain things, and if those things can't be addressed or can't be adjusted, it's just going to be a long road that eventually, what usually happens in the end anyways, they'll say, well, you didn't get it done. Let me go with this other agent. And then others will say, you know why? Because the price was too high, you didn't do this stuff. And I'll say, everything I told you in the beginning, right? So you end up you would lose the listing anyway. So it's better, I think, just to be honest about it and to set sort of at least a low, medium, and high point for the price that you could charge. And with the strategy behind each one. And be able to say, you can choose. You want this high price, it's going to be a harder road, longer road. You want the medium price, we're probably more on par with what the market's telling you. So you want this price that's a little lower, we're going to get more eyes on it quickly, and it may end up actually selling that medium price because we'll get more competition, right? So it's up to them at that point.
Bill?
It's points well taken. Set the price realistic. You know, I've had many clients say, well, what price should I put on it? I might say, okay, you know, what's a quick sale price too? I've heard that. I want to sell quickly. What do you think? Okay, you know, here's the price I tell you, and you know, for a potential quick sale. And this is assuming all your ducks are in a row. The property looks good, etc. And then they tell you, okay, well, you know, instead of X, I want X plus 200,000. You know, set realistic goals. Okay, you know, time frames, price. Price is super important. And like we've been discussing this whole time, make sure everything looks good. All right, get everything in order. Your paperwork. You know, we don't want to see title problems. You know, this one's untitled. They're not signing. So, you know, people will just move on to the next house. Okay, if you have any what of an issue, property lines. There's something wrong with the search, or you know, legal stuff. You're gonna have to adjust your price. Don't put it at a higher price. Put it at a price we can sell it. And then if everything is in a row, then we're going to put it at that price that you want.
So making sure that you're proactive about making it that everything gets done. This way, you don't have to negotiate after you've gone under contract. You've already set the tone. All your stuff's in order. Nothing's going to come up that's going to change the price you wanted.
Exactly.
Tyson, you want to?
Yeah, I think they covered the technical aspects. I mean, I think this is where sometimes as real estate professionals, we become psychologists too, is trying to get people to realize, like, we have to take the emotion out of it at this point. This is a business transaction now. We've moved from, you guys, you know, enjoy the property for X amount of years. It's now a business transaction. You're trying to get, you know, the most realistically you can for your property. This is what we need to do to accomplish that. And for them to realize, and this only comes through you speaking with them and educating them, more often than not, the seller is always the highest bidder for their property. There's no one that thinks their property is worth more than the person who's selling it, right? Like we run into that all the time. So I think getting them to understand it, knowing that you've been through as a real estate professional, you've been through it before with other buyers, trying to remove the emotion from the decision-making process and get it just more based on the numbers and make it a business decision, not an emotional decision.
And that comes into the educational aspect of educating the seller. I want to thank you. I think there were some really great points brought up. Hoping that a lot of sellers that are, or someone thinking about selling, can use this as a great tool to say, okay, now I understand what I have to do. And please contact one of us or anyone from RARE if you are thinking about selling your property. Thanks again. This will be on Spotify, on YouTube, on our website, under RARE Conversations.